y'all. We're here at the Old School Love Lounge. I'm your co-host, Stacy.
And I'm your co-host, Toni.
And today we are talking about the state of relationships. I think for us, this podcast and this show episode came about because we ingested so much conversation online from men and women's perspectives on dating and love and relationships and how our roles have evolved over the years. We see clashing, we see conflict, and we just wanted to come to an understanding about some of these things. And so
we need to clear up some mess.
We need to clear it up.
Yes, we do.
Because we need more love in the world.
We need better understanding.
We need better understanding. And so who do we have here to help us with that?
Ooh, we have a good one today. I'm so excited because, not only is our guest a clinical psychologist, but he's also a man. And I think it's great, to get a man's perspective,
Absolutely.
Right? So today we have Dr.Shane Perreault. I'm super excited about that. A little bit about him. He founded the American Marriage Counseling in 2004.
African.
Yeah. So, yes, thank you. African American Marriage Counseling in 2004. And in his private practice, he's partnered with over 6,000 couples. So he knows what he's talking about, you guys. So this is a bonus. Dr. Shane has also received his doctorate degree in clinical psychology from Ohio State University. And he has spoken at the Congressional Black Caucus. He has blogged for Psychology Today. He's also been featured in Essence Magazine and in Ebony Magazine, the Washington Post, the Washington Times. He's also been on XM Radio, BET, the list goes on and on. So, we're super excited to have him here. Thank you so much for coming and welcome to the show.
Welcome to Old School Love Lounge.
Yeah, Old School Love Lounge. Thanks for having me. I love what you're doing here. I think it's very important that we just get a forum where we can talk things through and hear from each other.
Yes.
I guess today I'm more of the male perspective, but really doing marital therapy, I've really come to understand both sides.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I see them go at each other, and I've seen some good outcomes.
Yeah.
So when we reference the things that we're seeing online and social media, all the talk, I'm wondering if that lends itself to what you're seeing in real time, like with real relationships and real conversations from men and women.
So I just say, tell me what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
think that, that's a good point because a lot of times stuff that's happening on social media is not really the reality,
that's
right?
True.
Yeah, and I think it can give us a false sense of what's really happening out in the world.
What we're seeing is that men, and we're specifically talking about dating in your 50s, love in your 50s.
Yeah.
In our age group, men are really ready to commit right now. When they're meeting a woman, they're trying to lock it down and commit.
Yes.
Where we're seeing a lot of women divorced, they've done that, been there, done that. They're ready to just kind of enjoy their lives, and looking at relationships as sort of a stress, looking at men as sort of a stress. And I think that comes from this conflict that we're seeing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
So that is a loaded question, but it's a good question. It's loaded. No, because I think, and I hate to say this, and someone somewhere is going to beat me up for saying it, but I think men and women a lot of times have different experiences in marriage. I say 80% of the time, just the roles are different.
Yeah.
A lot of time women are not left exclusively with, but boy, it's your responsibility to do child rearing. It's your responsibility to make sure our love nest is a love nest and our house is a home. And so they call it the second shift in research. It's like, okay, today's woman don't get me wrong, ladies, some of you are in a position where you've decided to be at home with your family, but in a lot of cases, it's the second shift. I work and I come home, and now I have to do X, Y, and Z, and you're telling me you're a man, but these dishes need to be done.
Right. Yes.
And we need to figure out how to put some hot food on that plate. And so it's a pressure. Whereas I think as a man, it's like our life is enriched in some ways. You get a little more burden. And after raising kids, I see a lot of women are like, okay, I need to do me. I put off X, I put off Y, I put off Z. I gave up this part of my identity, that part of my identity. It's nice to have that back. And
Yep.
I'm enjoying
They're woosahing.
Yeah. They're woosah. They're having a woosah moment. Exactly.
Yeah.
And now they want to travel.
Yeah,
You know,
and they want to travel and they want to live their best life.
Whereas men, we want our asset back, baby. Come on, do this, do that. I ain't got to clean up. I ain't got to worry about this. I don't have to worry about that. And that's a generalization, but I say like about probably 8 out of 10 times you're closer to that. The other 2, sometimes it's the opposite, and men are doing those things. So it really kind of depends.
Yeah. So why do you think that it happens that way? So like, is this something that happens like as men and women grow up and they have learned these roles from their own parents, or like why is that the case? Because now it seems like it's somewhat problematic.
Right.
I think some of it is role play and how we grow up and what we watch. Because think about, our parents grew up in the 60s, 70s, and so they had that model. So we definitely saw it coming up. It makes sense depending on the situation. If you have the traditional, he's the breadwinner, boy, it makes sense. But now we're at a place where we have 2 breadwinners. And even though women sometimes stay home for a year, 2, 3, a lot of times they go back to the workplace, and men, society, we don't adjust. We don't get the memo. Yeah. I had a person that hadn't been married that long, a client, recently contact with me, and everything just changed after they had kids. I mean, they were inseparable lovebirds.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, we need to do X, we need to do Y. Someone needs to stay home. No, I can't stay home. I got to go back to work.
Right.
I can't take this trip. Or if I take this trip, I make X for the household. But what weekend is that? Oh, we got Mother's Day coming up. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not as simple as it once would, in that there's no clear delineation of you do X, I do Y, and Z we do together. It's not as clear as it once was.
So I think that's interesting that you say that, because I spend a lot of time on social media, because obviously we have this podcast.
For research.
We have to research. We need to see what's going on. And it seems like on social media, there is a fight between men and women. And and Stacy was alluding to this, you see men really, and women, really trying to draw lines on these roles. I see men saying, we want women to be feminine. We want them to be soft. We want them to be, at home, cooking, cleaning, doing these very traditional roles that sort of lend themselves to, duties that women traditionally have done. And then you see, the men saying, I'm going to, bring home the money.
I'll be the head of the household.
I'll be the head of the household.
I'm going to be the lead.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be the lead. And I think, and you're right. And it's like, at this age, our audience is 50 plus. Some of those things don't really apply anymore, because, at this age, like you said earlier, a lot of women, if they're single, they can take care of themselves, and they are taking care of themselves. And I think there's somewhat of a conflict in terms of like, how do, a man and a woman get together and try to, get to know each other when we have these, these roles getting in the way. What do you say to that? Or have you had that experience, or had?
No, I see it a lot. And so given that your audience is after 50, having kids isn't their driver.
Right.
And that's a whole different decision-making thing. You want somebody that could really accentuate you. Like, your job is to make me happy, or to be a venue that we can make each other happy. It's not to reproduce. It's not necessarily to take care of me or for me to take care of you.
Yeah.
It's for us to be friends and us to bond and us to figure out, boy, what are we going to do with the second half of our lives?
Yes.
And so that's more of a partnership without these kind of ancient expectations that don't match reality anymore of what marriage and what our life is going to be like together. It may be the case she makes more. It may be the case that he has some younger kids and he's got this real maternal side of him that's kicked in because it didn't work out, but I still want to take care of them. So it's not as simple a formula as it once was, where a couple gets together no matter what, death do us part. And that's kind of the confusion that you might be talking about that's been created in dating.
Yeah. How do we come together? Is there a way? How do we, as men and women, how do we get past that? Is it communication? I mean, how do we,
empathy also. It's empathy.
So I'm not doing a free commercial for me. This is anyone out there you might want to talk to. No, because it's like, I think we need help.
Yeah, we do need help.
Yeah. But we're the least likely to get help.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just recognizing we're not hearing each other.
We're not.
And we think we're saying the same thing, but if we're still fighting over it, or we're coming back to explain it, or it's still causing us conflict, chances are we're not. And I'm just saying, a lot of people, we invest in a lot of things. We invest in clothes, hair, all those other things, but we don't invest in us. And we have to learn as a community, you know what, let me go talk to a professional. It may cost me X, Y, or Z, or I may do it on my insurance. And let me make sure we start hearing each other and getting on the same page and recognizing it's okay for us to be different, but we have to really have a healthy respect and understanding for the differences so that we can start speaking the same language.
So, but Dr. Shane, so we know that women typically go to therapy, and we know that Black men usually do not.
Or, and let me add, and I was going to mention this, so we were on the same wavelength, girl. I think
that's why we're co-hosts.
If women don't go to therapy, we have outlets.
Okay.
That's like it's a guarantee
for sure.
I will talk to Toni about
100%.
something, or my sister, or another friend,
and
now they'll listen.
Yes,
and they'll listen. And then men don't really take that opportunity to do that with their male friends. If they have male bonds, they don't bond in that way. They go play sports or watch a game or do whatever. Have a drink.
And then don't discuss any issues. Right. Yes, very true.
Right.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is just painfully true. You know, like if you and someone break up and you go to your boys, they're like, okay, we're going to take
your
you
point,
out.
right?
We're getting you twisted tonight. Right. Problem solved, right?
Right.
And I think it's like, but beyond that, I think we're totally underused mental health services. Just as a group, we think
absolutely.
Bring it to God. And don't get me wrong, I believe in bringing it to God, but I think God put some ways for us to get help in place.
Yeah.
And we have to be better consumers of that. You know, I've been just very fortunate living in the Washington, D.C. area. People are more psychologically open.
Yeah.
Not necessarily minded, because when they get there, they want to talk about their pain and don't realize the other person is hurt. But, you know, that's kind of my point. You don't have any prerequisites you have to meet. Going and talking to a professional, they'll help you walk through it. But if you're out there and you're in a relationship that you love, your spouse, your partner, whoever it may be, a possibility, a prospect, just really say, you know what? Are we hearing each other? Are we getting on the same page? Or could we get some help with that? And I think it's just a real game changer.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a question you can ask when you're dating somebody.
Yeah. What would be
How
the
open
question?
you are to therapy. What do you think about therapy?
Yeah.
I think it's a big one. It may even be like one of those, okay, if the scales are close, does it tip it? Because at some point, you're going to see things differently. That's the only guarantee in life, is that there will be these differences. And how you negotiate those differences is key, because like at 50, okay, we've had the relationship or marriage not work.
Yeah.
We maybe didn't talk to anybody, or we talked to someone too late.
Yeah.
And we really probably should have talked to someone before we said, I do to you, because I don't know. I was getting married for all these other reasons and not our connection. And we have to really focus on, it doesn't have to be the perfect connection. But, hey, there are strengths and things that we adore. Let's celebrate those. Boy, maybe there's some challenges or limitations. Let's figure out how to address those and build a stronger together, you know, a stronger community between us that we could go out and face the world with. So, ladies, and I realize my position in this, but really it's a dialogue, and we're trying to help a whole community. You know, I think you both have the experience of having had serious relationships or been married with people. When you get to that point where you say, I don't know, when you first really ask that question, you have that come to Jesus moment, like, this may not work. What do? How do you get support? How do you address that? Because there are a lot of at 50 people that have dealt with that question, or boy, the nest is empty and they're starting to ask that question. How do you respond to that?
Stacy?
Oh.
That was good.
I like that.
Yeah.
I tossed it over to my co-host.
I think for me, it was having conversations with people who I felt safe with, letting them know how I was feeling. And I think in my instance, I got messages, oh, it's probably just that. Oh, you know, it's okay. It's probably just this or that.
Yeah.
Deal with it this way. And I think for me, it had to be we've crossed this line and now I can't do this anymore. And then I had to make a change for my marriage and my life.
Yeah.
So that's what it was for me.
But
before then, it was talking to people. Yep.
So let me ask you a follow-up question. At that initial point, not to the point of making a decision, had those questions been addressed, do you think you could have, you know what, maybe we could work this out? Do you think you it might have ended it differently?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. Because I think therapy could have been helpful, but I wasn't with somebody who really wanted therapy.
And I think that's it. And I say that to the people listening. Is like sometimes, like people will come to me and say, you cost too much. I'm like, you know how much divorce attorneys cost?
That's very true.
You know, you think these are the cheap seats. These are nosebleeds.
That is very true.
You know, so saying that you invest out there as someone listening, so okay, you know, I'm going to take $1,500, $2,500, whatever, and I'm going to get some really good questions answered. It's hard for us to do, and we don't do it. Oh, I'll talk to my pastor. Don't get me wrong, your pastor may be brilliant. Or he may be phenomenal even in this area.
Yeah.
But at some point, you may want to talk with somebody that does just this. And I think that's one of the reasons that divorces in our community are so prevalent and the intensity level is so high. You know, whereas I think in other communities, they're more likely to deal with it in the earlier stages.
Yes. Absolutely. I think I also wanted therapy because I don't feel like, and I still don't fully understand my ex's experience and what led to some of the things that happened in our marriage. I wanted to understand his full experience and like any trauma or any other things.
Yeah.
And I never really feel like I got that and still don't. So that's why that was important for me.
I think that's critical because it's like we have to recognize that they're having a different experience than us. This is on both sides.
Yes.
You know, they're not thinking like you think and doing something crazy anyway. I know that may sound odd to you out there, but they're not having the same thoughts you are and just doing something different. You know, I think that's a big thing so that you don't bring that into your next relationship is the ability or inability to say, where are you coming from? What does this mean to you? And it may be the case that, hey, I would have talked to somebody and we would have reached the same conclusion, but we would have been more amiable about it. Right. And it may have changed how we parented or co-parented together.
I think that's a good point because I do think that as women, we're kind of like in the midst of whatever the issue is, we are definitely like, I know I have been, I'm like, why is it that you do not see what the problem is? How come you do not see what is going on here? Like, how can you not see it from this side? Or why are you not recognizing the issue at hand? But like you said, they're having a different experience and they're not probably seeing it the same way that the other person is. And when you're in it, it is hard to understand why they're not seeing what you're seeing. You know?
And the reality is, and this may shock you, but a lot of times people aren't that far apart. You know, it's not like you're seeing one country, Russia, and they're seeing like the U.S. It's like we're actually fairly close, but we can't agree on what that reality is so that we can resolve some of our issues.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out, how do we become friends again? Because when you were friends, no matter your differences, you could bridge that gap and get on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And we look for the next person. Oh, I think I got it with them. Then when there's a conflict, 2-3 divorces later, it's like, it's all of these people. And at some point, we have to say, boy, yeah, but I played a role in that. I'm kind of the common denominator. how do I get someone to help me figure out how do we get on the same page? Because if our audience is 50 older, some of those have been married more than once or twice.
Yes.
And I'm not saying you didn't get bad luck. People do all the time. But you didn't just get bad luck. You know, we have to look at our role in it and say, okay, what can I do differently if we want the next time to live our happily ever after?
We asked this question of our last guest, who is a woman. From a male's perspective, what questions should you be asking while you're dating somebody and learning them and trying to figure them out, see if they're the right person for you?
Should a woman be asking me, or should I be asking?
Should you be asking a woman?
I think I should be asking a woman. The first question I would ask anyone would be, what happens when you're in a conflict?
Yeah, that's
How
a good
do
one.
you resolve it? What do you make of the fact that they're seeing it different? Is it their fault?
Yeah.
Is it your fault? Is it something we just need to fix? I don't care who we blame.
Yeah.
And because I think those are bigger questions than they realize, because I don't care. There's no way in the world two people are going to see things the same
way.
all
Right.
the time. And so when we see things and we don't get our needs met, who do we become?
Yeah.
Do we drag down the whole happiness in the marriage? Do we blame them? Do we look within? Do we figure out how do we bridge the gap?
Yeah.
And I just think that's a key thing, is how do we resolve conflicts?
You know, I like to ask this question of a man. I will ask the last person that you were with, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, or whatever, what was the reason that she would say? Now, you may not necessarily agree, but if she were in the room and we got a chance to ask her what was the reason why it didn't work out, what would she say is the reason? Not what did you say? What do you know her answer? What would her answer be to the reason why the relationship didn't work out?
That is so wise, Tony. And the reason that is wise is you have to hear.
Right.
You know, are they open? Were they able to really process it? It's a big predictor for future success.
Yes.
Is what role did you play in it? So I think that's a key question.
Yeah.
Taking accountability.
Yeah, taking accountability. Yeah, because you may not agree, or I like to see what they say to see if, you know, if it doesn't work out, could that woman have been right about, you know, some of the reasons that it didn't work out?
Right.
That's advanced. I ain't talking about the graduate degree, but you're picking a partner, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have just a GED.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, maybe not have that. I just dropped out, right?
Right.
You want somebody that's learned and matured.
Yes.
And I think that's even a bigger predictor than how many times they've been married or divorced.
Yeah.
Or not married at all.
Yeah.
Is like, hey, when you have a challenge, who do you become?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Because you want to see people in all different, in different scenarios, right? And see, you know, how they are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think is more lasting, chemistry or compatibility?
Ooh, that's a good one, Stace.
I would say compatibility. Well, because I think friends stay together.
Yeah.
Friends don't do something. You could be really compatible with someone.
Yeah.
You have no friendship and you have no rules that you follow.
Yeah.
You don't take them into account. You just do you. And, oh my God, but it feels so explosive. Well, give me about 2 years of them doing them. Your chemistry is probably going to be evaporated. So I think, I'm not saying marry someone without chemistry, but make sure you have a good balance of both. But if you don't have a friendship with the person, and you're talking about the biggest commitment you'll make in your life, I mean, you're committing to how your furniture is going to look, the type of pet you get, where you
all
go on
those things.
vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have someone that you can negotiate and cut a deal with and feel like, I didn't get everything, but I won. You know, they could create a win-win. I didn't lose. It wasn't a win-lose all the time. And I'm sitting here, but I'm your wife or I'm your husband, so let me deal with it. You know, we got to keep that level of passion there.
Do you think that you can have a relationship without chemistry? Because chemistry comes and goes, right, in a relationship?
Yeah. You know, that's a great question. You know, if you look at like 1950 and before, chemistry wasn't as highly a rated thing.
Yeah.
But in our society where we have so many stimuli, we have so many things, I think it's important to ask yourself, can you or can't you? and how much chemistry do we need? Because all that pop and fizzle chemistry, some people keep that.
Yeah,
they do.
A lot of people don't. And when that's gone, boy, who did I choose as a partner? And that's why I talk about the friendship even.
Yeah.
If I have a friend, we probably could find our way back to enough of that. Maybe even a lot of that.
Yeah.
And we don't maybe need to keep all of it. But I think it's an important factor.
You got to like.
Yeah.
Yeah. You end of the day, it's like,
you
do I like you?
Yeah.
Because, well, think about it. You ever been around someone you don't like? What do you communicate to?
Right.
But you know, if you go by social media again, because we're on there, I'm on there, I'm looking. What you would see or hear is that in general, and generally speaking, the consensus is that men don't like women. That's the consensus.
You know, I mean, if a man don't like women, don't marry him. I mean, you ain't going to be happy. Yeah.
But they marry them anyway is the thing. And they get in relationships with them anyway.
And they're headed nowhere. I'm just saying, if someone just, end of the day, doesn't like you or you get that vibe, why? I'm being extremely honest here. Not politically anything. It's like, why marry someone that doesn't like you?
But it happens all the time. But how do you not marry them or not get in relationships with them when they're pretending like they do like you?
Yeah, no, I think people get fooled and people get duped. I think someone not liking things about you is different than someone just not liking you. Mm-hmm. You know, like, hey, you need to do X, Y, or Z. You need to be better. Wouldn't want a person that didn't challenge me in that way, honestly. Right. Someone just doesn't like who I am. That's going to get old because I ain't going to like you. Because we don't like people that don't like us. And I'm not the type of person that's going to be faithful for 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, 2 months with someone that doesn't like me. So you have to ask yourself that question. Can you be with someone that doesn't like you? Personally, I'm not that good at it. Not that I'm so into myself. It's just I don't know how to function with that energy directed at me.
Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Shane, where do you fall on the whole topic of submission? Should women submit?
Oh, she thought she had me a trick question, but I've been with 6,000 couples, so I've answered this on many occasions. I think submissions.
Let's lean in.
Let's lean in on this. I think submission's a two-way street.
Yeah. Okay.
To really be happy, there are going to be some things you want to do I have no interest in, but I know it makes you happy. I know it makes your family happy. I know it makes you feel like a good mom, a good daughter, a good sister, a good whoever. And so I think we both have to cut a deal because two people are not going to come into the world seeing everything the same. And even if they do, they're going to evolve. And so that vantage point is going to be lost. And so we have to get somebody that is willing to say, look, this means very little to me, but it means a lot to you. On that point, I'll submit. Is that ever even? Probably not. But it has to feel like it's a good balance. It has to feel like it's a healthy balance. But it's a good question because women are taught, oh, I need to submit. I need to be submissive. But I'll submit on some things. But we really got to ask ourselves, who really has what strength here? You know, if I get a wife that has a better financial mind than I do,
I think I'm done.
That's it.
We heard it from Dr. Shane.
We heard it from Dr. Shane. We heard it from the doctor himself. Okay, I didn't mean to. Please finish.
It's okay. I'm gonna let you have your moment.
That was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's just like you have to know your lane. You know, there are things I am not the best at. There are things that you're going to be best at. And there are going to be things I'm phenomenal at. And to really be a successful couple with two people that become greater than the two, you know, it's like the whole is greater than the sum is greater than the parts. We both have to really put ourselves in a space where we accept and develop and really prosper from each other's contribution. Otherwise, it just, you got frustration. You know, you have major frustration. Boy, you're bright. Everyone loves you, but I don't listen to you. That's got a short shelf life.
Yeah. I think we both are in a space where we are okay with a man leading where it makes sense. Where I feel like that is his strength, just like you said.
Yeah.
Yes, give us guidance. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But then, go ahead.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think, again, like we said in many conversations, it's like as you get older and you're living by yourself, sometimes, when you have, first of all, I kind of feel like this. Because I've been in situations where a man has said to me, I need you to submit. And that definitely didn't go over too well. I'll just say. And, but I feel like anytime you have a conversation with a man that says you need to follow me or you need to submit, I feel like that's the very man you don't need to do that with. Right.
Because, so let's flush that. Let's flush that out.
Because I feel like if, no, and we're actually having therapy in a real time here. So, but I feel like any real man whose leadership does not need to say, follow me. You know what I mean? I feel like you would just lead. And then if I feel safe and I trust where you're going, I'm going to just naturally do that.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me.
You don't have to tell me and say, I need you to follow my lead. I feel like if we're having that conversation, this isn't probably the man I need to follow, because I want you to just do it naturally. And then let me see what you're doing. And if I like it and it feels right and I trust you and it feels safe, then I'm going to go.
Okay, so let's talk about the exception to that rule.
Okay, yeah.
I think overall, I get what you're saying. I don't have a problem. But one day I was walking with a young lady, and I don't know if you know much about D.C., but they have the bridge that goes over to the bad area at the time in Capitol Hill.
Yep.
And so we're going there, and there's these kids there. And I'm like, come with me. She's like, no, I'm a teacher. I'm going to walk by these kids. Like, you don't know those kids. If something happens, I have to deal with that situation. It's not a crisis, but it could become a crisis because you got that nice looking purse on you. And if something happens, I got to deal with all these kids, and we could have just avoided this. So I'm just saying there's sometimes that as a protector, I'm going to see something you don't see. There's going to be some things you see I don't have a clue about, and I have to just follow you. You know, there's some things that you have strengths in. Let's say yours is real estate. I just got to say, God, Lord, all right, I just trust you. And I'm just saying that's friendship.
Yeah.
If not, yeah, you win, but you lose. And we have to figure out how do we negotiate those. But we have to have the friendship to be able to talk through it. Hey, in that situation, I may come off as a complete blankety blank. But had something happened, to me, that could have been life or death, because I wasn't going to let those kids violate or disrespect you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who those kids were.
Right.
And so I get what you're saying most of the time, but there's some times where we can say that and be like, you know what, I trust you enough that you have my best interest there. I'm going to just shut up. And that could be either side.
Yeah.
And I will follow you. But now when we get through, you might want to explain this to me really well so we keep that going.
Yes.
But sometimes we're just not going to have the insight our person, our spouse does. And we do have to. And I'm just saying, we're talking about making it work.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes people, and they may even see it wrong and be dead cocky about it and be dead wrong about it. But it's like, okay, that was big to you. Tell me why that was so important to you.
Yeah.
And if we do that, we can get through things.
And I think what you're talking about like some real mature communication, right? And so, and I think that's definitely important in this whole thing, like that you're communicating with each other.
But look at what you just did. Like, you didn't buck me. You said, okay, damn it, I hadn't thought about that way. That makes sense in real time.
Yes.
And I'm just saying, it's just that spirit of like, okay, if it makes sense, if it's not making sense to me, make it make more sense.
Yeah.
You know, talk me through it.
Yes.
I'm open. I'm just not bucking and against everything.
Yeah.
And I need to have that trust in you. Like when you said that, I didn't think you were going to sit here and buck at all. It's fairly reasonable. You know, she wants to be happy. And so I'm saying, that's what happens when we have all these plans and we're clashing. We have to step back and say, okay, why is that so important to you?
Yeah.
You know, and ask those basic questions.
Yeah.
Some of us look at some of these situations like a competition. And they do just want to win.
Yeah.
Have one.
Yeah, and sometimes even when you win, you lose. It's the challenge, and it's just figuring out, okay, I really need to create a win-win. Like, you're smart, you're dynamic, you have experience. Why don't I respect that? I do. Mm-hmm. So even in this interview, I have to respect, boy, that's coming from a place. Probably a lot of women watching right now have that question. Probably a lot of men do too. Yeah, I remember that happened with us and how it went south. And in real time, we have to be able to model. It's just an opinion. Yeah. It's not personal. Yeah. You know, there's something that made you say that was important to you because you have some painful experiences where you weren't followed. Am I correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so it's like we have to learn to like, okay, let's flush that out. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're trying to step on my feet. You don't know what my experiences are. Yeah. Let me understand why that's so important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other questions do you think are key in sort of learning about somebody in the beginning at this age?
I think at this age, it's like, so it's funny that you say that because I had a gentleman recently come in and he's a professional athlete, real sharp guy, but he's used to taking control. And this woman is just not that person, right? Mm-hmm. She is not giving him any of it. And he's pulling his hair out. And he's having to learn that, okay, I could get I could get some people that will let me be that boss, but that ain't the person I really want. There's something about you that really works for me, and I'm going to have to be flexible. I'm going to have to learn who you are and figure out what that means to you. I can't take this playbook out. I've had success. Let me run these same plays on you because you might be not taking none of that, right?
Right.
Or, you know, you just may have a different experience. So we really got to be present and accept the fact that, okay, it doesn't matter so much that we agree or disagree. Like just now, we saw things differently. We were able to listen. That's the it factor. Yeah. The it factor is when we see stuff and we're headed in different directions, can we catch each other and say, what are you hearing right now? What are you responding to in this conversation?
What do you value in relationships? What are the things that you value most?
I think for me is really having a friend. Because life is stressful enough and you need that person that you could come home. Like I said, not necessarily agree with you, be woman enough to say, you know what, you're dripping, man, hard. Why are you doing this? Excuse me, what are you talking to? Yeah. I am. Yeah. You know, you need that level of trust. I think that's key. I think someone that's open to your feedback from the standpoint of, hey, this doesn't work for me, but that does. And not so defensive that everything feels like an attack. You know, like, okay, let me try it. I never thought about it, but I'll give it a shot.
Can men and women actually really be friends? And I'm asking that as a real question because, like, my friendships with women are very intimate. Like, meaning like they are really, my female friends are really there for me. We really, you know, talk about real issues. They get me. We get each other. They understand where I'm coming from. It's a soft place. It's, you know, and I wonder at times, is this something you could actually have with a man? Like, I mean, I know, you know, I hear people say I married my best friend, and boy, that sounds really nice. I mean, I would like that, you know, but like, is that really possible?
I think that's kind of the super sauce, right? You know, because for a relationship to work for an extended period of time, you have to be friends because friends cut deals. Yeah. Friends listen to you and say, look, okay, you know what? It ain't even my week to be doing that, but clearly you need this week. And so I'm saying it's inseparable. Yeah. I think, can men be friends with women? I feel very fortunate. I've had a lot of deep friendships with women. I think it's something that everybody doesn't have the history of. And we have to figure out, boy, what does that mean for us? And who do we want to take that chance with?
Yeah. And I think the second part of that question is because male friendships with other males don't really mirror the same kind of friendships that women want to have with men. And I'm only speaking from this side, from the kind of friendships that we would like to have with men, like their own male friendships that you witness, you know, look very superficial at times, you know?
I think the rules of engagement are different, which is kind of what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, but I have, you know, and I'm not, yes, I have deep friendships with males and females. I think I wouldn't be successful on the couch as a therapist if I couldn't connect with both in that way. To you, if that's something that you're looking to develop, make that note.
Yeah.
You know, set that as a goal. I want to be open to male friendships. I'm going to accept the fact that it looks and feels different. Like, I think some men, they'll go down that road with you. Some men, I don't communicate in that way. But I bring you stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sick, they show up with medications, or they show up with Bengay or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Bengay.
I know, I pulled that out. Right? But it's like we have to be open to seeing things differently, I think is the key.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, what do you do when it's a critical time? Some people just shut down and go inward.
Yeah.
Some people have learned to reach out. I don't think that's a gender thing. I think that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but some men who you may say, you shut down. I think once you express that very side of you that's supportive and caring, like, hey, if you want to talk about it, I'm here to listen. Not tell me so I can go tell the world. And not that I think you do that, but it's just like, it's figuring out what's the barrier.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you're somebody that I think I could be a friend with. What's the barrier? Hey, are you attracted to me? Am I attracted to you? You know, let's just deal with that.
Yeah.
How much, like in your practice, you've talked to a lot of couples. How much does past trauma make its way into the issues that a couple is facing currently?
It's a lot. Okay. I mean, it's a big thing because it affects how you interpret and read the room. You know, who you are. I mean, if you grew up hungry, you're going to interpret things one way versus if you've grown up full. You know, if you've grown up where things work out, you interpret it one way. If you've grown up where people disappoint you a lot, you don't trust people. So it's just kind of really losing us and saying, what does this mean in their world? You know, you just asked me for the third time, am I going to do that this Friday when I said I'd do it? You know, in my world, people don't ask. They just know I'm going to show up. Why are you asking me that?
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we understand that we see the world as we are, not as it is. So I don't need you to not see it the way that you see it. I need to be, okay, am I reflective? Do I care enough about you to try and figure out what your reality is and speak and talk in a way that we address it? Doesn't mean I have to do it the way you want me to, but we at least have to be able to talk about why we're not.
Do you think that men or women, generally speaking, bring more baggage to a relationship? Is there one that does it more? Because I think that most people think that women bring a lot of their past baggage to relationship. Is that?
I think they bring different kinds of baggage. I was going to say
different baggage.
Okay.
Yeah, I think different kinds of baggage and a different ability to communicate about their baggage. I don't think, men, gotta let y'all throw you under the bus on this one, but it's like, I don't think men naturally are taught to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, if a woman cheats on you, like, say, we're going to take you out and get you drunk. And you never really deal with that. But you do take it out on the next person that you see and the person after that and after that.
Yeah.
You know, whereas women have an environment where it's more communal and they trust each other and they talk through things. So I think there's maybe a different culture associated with gender, friendship, and relationships. And we have to figure out, okay, how do I do that with you? Or, boy, just because that's too much for you, does that mean the same thing for Steve to shut it down as it does for Susan to shut it down?
Yeah.
It may mean, okay, I just need to approach this differently.
In your practice, like when you're seeing couples or men and women, what are some of the things that you hear men say that they wish women would do?
So if I had to break it down into one word, I would say friendship.
Friendship?
Like, if you know I like to watch the game, I'll use a more stereotypical example. Okay, that's not when we're going to really talk. Now, if I'm watching the game every night.
So basically, don't talk to you while you're watching the game.
For some people, it may be that. Okay. But generally speaking, fourth quarter, it's kind of off limits. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just a safe type of a bet. If you're not naturally interested in the game, just sit there and be quiet and enjoy it. Don't, let me ask this question or that question. Because someone's real intense about that. Yes. So I've used friendship probably for every answer. Not that that's my only answer, but it's the only one that really means you could be fluid. Yeah. Like a friend adapts to the situation. And like, hey, I noticed that, when the Pistons are playing, you're from Detroit? Okay. He gets real serious about that. But then you got some people that are overboard with it. And it's like, okay, I don't mind you being overboard, but we need to figure out how do we have our nights. Because you got Monday football, you got Saturday football, you got college, you got Sunday, you got Thursday. And you got these cable channels. So you can watch it on the other time. So, hey, the important thing is we're losing our connection. I want to be more connected to you. I tried learning more about sports. That didn't work. How do you let me in? And if I have a partner that can't let me in and I'm not married, this ain't changing. Right. And that may be like, okay, that earlier. Is this a deal breaker? Because we think people are going to magically change. And I think people tend to be more of who they are than less.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, very true. Which I think, is an important subject to talk about, because a lot of times when you're dating, a lot of times the person that you meet in the beginning is, not always, the person that they are months down the road, right? You're kind of meeting the person who's putting their best foot forward.
But I'm going to challenge that in a different way. I think in addition to that happening, we tend to project more. And we bought this version of them, and boy, they meet our needs, and now we could live our happily ever after instead of saying, okay. And I think women are very good at that sometimes, at seeing things and saying, let me kind of figure this out. It's like, there's what I want and need you to be, but boy, who are you? And we need to figure that out before we get too involved.
Well, what do men do? You say women are good at that. Are men not good at that?
I think men are we do it a lot as well. We project more visually, whereas women may project based more on their connection. I think you're smarter than us in that way. We think visually it means things it doesn't mean. Okay. No, it just means she looks great in the outfit. But it doesn't mean she's necessarily someone I want to bring to my company party. So it's just really kind of, to me, assessing the situation, accepting that, okay, for the first 3 to 6 months, we're going to be starstruck with each other. But after that, what happens when I challenge things? Who are we and what do we have?
I like that. I like that. Can we talk about intimacy just for a little bit? Because I would love to know. It was another therapist somebody sent me a clip of it, and it was talking about how when men want sex, what they really want is closeness in a relationship.
They don't just want sex?
Women might view that as, he just wants my body, but he might want to just feel close to you and intimate with you in that moment. And I wonder what you thought about that.
That is interesting.
A lot of things went through my mind with that. I mean, some men, yes, I would say that. Some people, men and women, sex is a means of expression. Sex and being close to you is just how that happens. So you have to look at kind of who you are and what are your needs in that situation. And I say it from the standpoint of sex just means something different to all of us. And I know couples that have great sex lives and they balance that really well, and then something changes, like there's a kid. Well, if it was our ability to connect, we're maybe okay there. But if that was something, and physically I'm wired such that I have to have sex 3 or 5 times or 7 times a week, or even more than that, boy, I'm disappointed. It happens.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, it's just bridging that gap, because some people, so I think of it in terms of kind of love languages. So
yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. Like if your love language is physical connection, physical acts, or just being physical with somebody, you're going to experience that as a complete rejection. If your love language is gifts, depending on what your love language is, you're going to experience that differently. And we think people experience it as we do. Mm-hmm. So that might be more of the question, hey, what are your absolute needs? Some people, it isn't sex. Some people is that, boy, we laugh together. We could talk about anything. Mm-hmm. Some people is you get me gifts. It's just figuring out what's their unique love language and how do I understand and become fluent in it. Fluent means, okay, even on the bad days when you're not talking to me, I can kind of ask you enough questions to figure out what is it you need right now.
Yeah.
So do men experience intimacy through sex in the same? It seems as if they don't, but it seems like they don't experience intimacy in the same way that women do. And the reason why I asked that is because, I was just thinking about that when Stacy asked the question, but a lot of times, if in fact what that article said is true, to me, I find it a little bit hard to believe, because to me, when men want sex, they want sex. And for women, it's more about the closeness, the intimacy, those things. But do men have intimacy in the same way through sex that women do, or do they experience intimacy other ways with women?
So when you say other ways, what would be an other way?
I don't know. Is it through conversation? Is it through watching the game sitting on the couch? Is it through you trusting me with some information that I don't share, or something like that? I don't know. I don't know which way.
You're asking some important questions. I'm really trying to flush them out, because I think all of those things individually, you may talk to 10 people and either one of them may work for them or not work for them, but some
generally
parts of the population, they want to get it in.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it in with them, boy, you're going to have a problem, and you need to figure out how to really talk about that problem and solve that problem. Some people, we could get it in, but I want to feel connected to you.
Yeah.
And I've seen like a lot of tension about that. I had a couple not too long ago that came in, and she was like, okay, you're wired for sex. You want it every day, da-da-da. I'll just close my eyes, wake me when you're done. And she didn't mean it in a rude way, but she tried it in every other way, and it just didn't work.
Right.
And he wasn't able to recognize, hey, 2-3 times a week might work well for you. You're trying to speak my love language. I'm considering these other times just because I want you to be happy. And we just need to figure out, how do we talk about that? If you want me to be present and intense, that might be 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
If you want me just to say, okay, wake me when you're done, that could be as often as you want.
Yeah.
But what do you want to feel after? I say it because it's important that we don't see things in a right or wrong way.
Yeah.
Where we say, okay, given who I am and who you are, how do we find this place in the middle where we both can feel like I got enough to go forward?
Yeah.
And I've also seen people say, go do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And so there are different ways that people solve those differences.
I definitely think there's definitely not a coincidence that a lot of times when you ask men, like, what is their love language, they generally say physical touch. Did you notice that?
I don't know if I agree with that.
Oh, that's been my experience.
Acts of service is one that I've heard.
Oh, really?
Too. Just doing for
that person. I feel like I always get physical touch when I ask the question, and I'm like, that probably translates to sex, maybe, or maybe not.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just going out on a limb here. And it may be how you two are viewed by men possibly differently. Maybe there's something about you that attracts that type of a person. Mm-hmm. And there's something about her that may repel that, huh?
Okay, yeah, no, I don't want that, though.
Well, and it's something to learn. But even like earlier...
But that's an interesting perspective. Like, I never thought about that.
Well, even earlier when you were talking about friendship with men, boy, that's a bit of a... It's a place it might be a growing opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And it's just figuring out who am I attracting, who am I possibly repelling. So that was just something that happened impulsively. I don't want you to say that that's any nailed down theory that I have. Right. But listening to you, that could be some of it.
Yeah.
Are you trying to say I'm not sexy?
I didn't mean that at all.
I feel like that's what I heard.
That's what you heard? No, that is not. I think
I heard I'm doing too much.
See what I'm saying? I can't win. But, and I'm here trying to skate out of this. I need to accept the fact that I'm just here, right?
It's getting hot.
Be in the moment.
No, but I definitely appreciate the question, and I see what you were trying to say. It depends on perspectives, the type of men that we are drawing into our lives.
Right, but you weren't saying that people with physical touch were responding to you, and she was saying she was eliciting that in the environment is what I was responding to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remembered her earlier comment about, well, this friendship with men thing, I'm not as clear on. How do you negotiate that?
Yeah.
So I tied those two together. So that's what
he's doing his Dr.
Shane thing?
Yes, Dr. Shane thing.
That's what it is.
And cleaning it up, too.
Trying to. Not so well, but.
So what else you got, Stacy?
I just want to know, like, from what we've talked about so far, sort of how we come together. And it sounds like it's being open to therapy. It's communicating better, improving our lines of communication with the opposite sex.
Okay. It is, but I got to be honest. The people on this couch are pretty good communicators. Right. We're communicating, and I'm not saying that in an elitist standpoint. We're just trained professionals. So we're communicating in a way where we're asking our questions, but even finding sometimes we get stumped. And I think it's the areas that we get stumped on that we have to say, boy, how do I get through this? Like, why do you think my whole love language is physical touch? I have some other areas that are important to me. Maybe I need to find someone to help me talk through that because I'm getting that from you and I want to connect in all these other ways. And we need to figure out how to do that. And then you'll find that physical touch happens more often too.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of figuring out, like, when do we need help?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is there a moment? I mean, how do you know when you need help? I mean, I think that's a great. Is there some sort of sign or signal or?
Yeah, when you're seeing the same thing differently.
Yeah.
Chances are you need an interpreter. Like if I'm talking to someone that speaks Japanese.
Yeah. Makes sense.
They're not calling this an orange. They're calling it something. I don't even know what they're saying.
Yeah.
Boy. And if that's happening emotionally, like I'm feeling slighted, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling like you don't care about me. Because I've sat down with, like, so I'll get a couple and his is acts of service and sex, right? And hers is, boy, she really is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And she really needs to talk through it. He likely is going to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so, not for any bad reason, not because he doesn't care, love, or respect her, but it's more than he can process. And so we have to figure out, okay, if we're hitting the wall on this, could there be someone out here that's seen this before? Could they help us through it? And could that lead to us living our happily ever after?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, it is.
And acts of service could also be sex.
That's true.
It could also be sex. So, you said you got acts of service, right? That's what they were trying to tell you, Stacy.
Yeah, I
so
guess.
See, you're not sexy. You're not.
I think it was picking up a heavy box that I can't pick up, or running to the store for me.
Maybe
that's what I was.
Or
thinking.
maybe it was an act of service through sex.
Maybe.
This is a great conversation, Dr. Shane.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you'll have me back.
Yes, we'd love to.
I'm excited about your show. I'm excited about old school Love Lounge.
Yes.
Love Lounge.
Yes.
I'm excited about it, and I'm happy to be one of your earlier guests. Mm-hmm. I think we need more of this. We need to learn to talk about love because we're ending up on different pages, speaking different love languages.
For sure.
And we have to figure out, how do we come together?
Yeah. Very much so.
Thank you for joining us on another great episode of the Old School Love Lounge.
Please subscribe to our YouTube page and follow us on IG and TikTok at the Old School Love Lounge.
Yes, we will see you on our next episode. Until then, keep it grown and
sexy,
that's
y'all.
Right.